Hi everyone, welcome back to science. Today's objective is I can describe the ocean biome. So by the end of the lesson today, you should be able to explain just briefly what is the ocean biome and what kind of plants and animals and climate do they have there. Climate is a little bit tricky for the ocean because obviously it doesn't rain or snow in the ocean, but we can still talk about the different temperatures we see there. And we're also going to talk about the different layers of the ocean and how we can categorize or classify the layers of the ocean. There are 3 of them. Alrighty, so here we go. Oceans. Ocean's such a good word. O-C-E-A-N. Strange spelling, but it spells oceans. So about 70% of the Earth is covered in water, making the ocean biome the largest ecosystem in the world. Oceans are unique because most of the plants and animals that live there, humans rarely get to see. In fact, we've talked before about how some scientists think that we know more about outer space than we do about our own ocean. We've explored more in space than in the ocean, mostly because we can see into outer space using gigantic telescopes. And there are some ways to look at the ocean, like from satellite images, but overall it's much harder to explore down in those deep, dark depths, surprisingly, than it is to even explore far reaches of space. So there's lots of the ocean that's unexplored, and probably hundreds of thousands, if not millions of species down there that we've never even heard of. So, ocean waters are made up of salt water. This is because salt from rocks on the land gets swept into the ocean. So what is salt? Salt is sodium chloride, NaCl, and it's basically a mineral that's a part of almost every rock you see. A lot of rocks contain salt in them. So as it's not like the water in the ocean is completely different from the water in the sky or the water in lakes, right? It's still H2O, it's still water, but dissolved inside of that water or bouncing back and forth between the different water molecules are salt crystals. So ocean water is still H2O, but it's salt water because the ocean is so big and so powerful, and it's constantly smashing against rocks, which loosens up particles of salt, and after millions and millions of years, now all those salt particles have filled up the ocean. So the ocean is completely salty. Okay, so pause your video and go answer question number 1 on your Google form. Or if you prefer, if you don't want to switch back and forth between a bunch of tabs, I know some of you have been telling me that that's pretty annoying. So you could just leave this video up and pause the video and just write the answer down. Write it on a piece of paper or write it on a notepad. And then once you're done with the lesson and you've watched the whole video, then you could go back to your Google form and fill out your answers. So either way, either pause and go fill out your Google form. Question number 1, why are oceans made of salt water? Where does the salt in the water come from? Okay, or you can write down the answer and go fill out the form after the lesson. Awesome, and the answer is because of the turbulence of the ocean water. So the ocean water smacking into the rocks creates a salty mixture. So we've talked about the 5 different oceans on Earth, and we remember that it's really all connected, right? It's all one ocean, which we call the world ocean. There's no hard and fast boundaries between them, but we sort of separate them based on their general regions. Based on the general regions on Earth. So there's 5 major oceans. We have the Atlantic Ocean, which is on the east coast of the United States. The Pacific Ocean, which is on our west coast. and crosses all the way across the globe over to the east coast of Asia. Then we have the Indian Ocean, conveniently placed right below India. The Southern Ocean, which is around the South Pole or around Antarctica. And then the Arctic Ocean, which is at the North Pole. Okay, so the ocean is split into 5 chunks, but it's really all merged together, right? All the waters in the ocean are connected. So from there, the oceans branch out into different seas. So seas are like extensions of the ocean, but they're smaller and they have more land around them than the ocean. So the ocean is split into different zones. We usually break up biomes, different environments, into zones because that makes it easier for us to study them. So a zone might be one zone might be different from another zone based on its plants or its animals, or things like how much sunlight it gets, how much water it gets. So scientists who study the ocean, who are called oceanographers, an oceanographer, scientists who study the ocean, called oceanographers, have divided ocean waters into different layers called zones. These zones are different depths from the surface of the ocean. So each zone is a different depth. There's a really deep zone, there's a really shallow zone, and then there's a medium zone in between them. They are also based on how much sunlight each zone receives. That makes sense, right? The zone closest to the surface of the ocean is going to get the most sunlight. The layers all have different temperatures and animal life, as well as plant life. Animals in each zone are very unique and adapt to the different amounts of light that they receive. Not only the different amounts of light, but also, right, the different temperatures and the different types of food available. So pause your video and let's answer question number 2. How many layers of the ocean are there? According to oceanographers, how many layers or how many zones of the ocean are there? Okay, and hopefully you wrote down a big fat number 3, because there are 3 zones of the ocean, 3 layers that we're going to talk about today. The first one is called the sunlit zone, or sometimes the sunlight zone. The sunlit zone is at the surface of the ocean and reaches down about 200 meters. So that's not very deep, about the size of 2 football fields. So this is the zone, if you've ever gone swimming in the ocean, this is the zone that you have swum in. This is the zone that gets the most light, and as a result, it has the most plants and the most animals. The sunlit zone has plentiful seaweed and coral. This zone is home to 90% of all life in the ocean. So that makes sense. Almost everything lives towards the surface of the ocean because that's where all the action is, right? That's like the big city of the ocean, if you will. There's light there all the time. Plants can easily grow there. And there's lots and lots of different species that make up the food chain in the sunlight zone. So this is where most of the activity of the ocean happens, even though it's not very deep, right? You can see that it's one of the smallest zones. The twilight and the midnight zones go much, 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 much deeper, but it's a lot harder to survive there. So they have less light in the deeper zones and less life as well. Less light and less life. So the sunlit zone is also home to the largest animal on Earth, which is the blue whale. Blue whales can be up to 100 feet long, and their tongue alone can weigh, oh, that's the wrong spelling of weigh, I'm sorry, oops, can weigh as much as an elephant. Other animals that are found in the sunlit zone are seals, dolphins, sea turtles, rays like stingrays and manta rays, jellyfish, and sharks. So most of the ocean animals that we have heard of and we know about can be found in this top layer. Most of the life in the ocean is found in the sunlit zone. So blue whales, stingrays, dolphins, sea turtles, all of the above can be found there. The sunlit zone is also home to another fascinating marine biome called a coral reef. So we're looping in coral. We could spend a whole week, a whole month, a whole year talking about coral reefs because they're so rich in detail and they have so many different species who live there. But we're just going to briefly mention them as a part of the ocean biome. So coral reefs are only found in shallow tropical waters. Remember, tropical means warm or hot, right? Close to the equator. Tropical waters that receive plenty of sunlight. So coral needs plants and sunlight in order to grow. Coral looks like colorful plants or rocks, but it is really made up of thousands of small animals called polyps that are grouped close together. Polyps form hard shells to protect themselves and have long tentacles that reach out to grab food. When polyps die, they harden and become part of the reef. Then new polyps grow and make the reef even larger. It can take hundreds of years for a large reef to be formed. Okay, so these are animals who basically clone themselves. They don't reproduce making eggs or making babies. These are some of the simplest animals on Earth. So each of these little folds that you can see, each little tiny dot and ribbon that you can see on these coral is a little polyp, which can keep on cloning and keep on cloning and grow and grow and grow. Coral reefs are home to groups of different animals that live together. There are often snails, sea urchins, seahorses, crabs, sponges, and other animals that live within the reefs. The coral reefs provide shelter for fish to hide from predators. Other larger animals like sharks and sea turtles are attracted to reefs because of the many fish that live there. Fish are friends, not food. Just kidding. Sharks definitely show up to be predators. And if you guys have seen Finding Nemo or Finding Dory, then you have seen some wonderful animation and illustration of coral reefs. That is where Nemo lives, right? It's a very colorful and beautiful place, and also highly endangered thanks to ocean pollution. So reefs are extremely biodiverse places in the top layer of the ocean. So pause your video. Oh, I just gave you this answer. Pause your video and go to question number 3 on your Google form. In which layer can we find coral reefs? Or in which zone? The sunlight, twilight, or midnight zone? And your answer is the sunlight zone or sunlit zone. That's where we find coral reefs. The next layer down is called the Twilight Zone. This layer receives low levels of sunlight, so just a little bit of sunlight, and it's located between 200 to 1,000 meters below the surface of the ocean. So this is pretty deep. You might have some scuba divers who are getting down that low, but definitely not any swimmers, and usually human activity is happening in the sunlight zone. So humans don't go here very often. It is dark to the human eye, and water can be dark blue or black and very murky. The water in the Twilight Zone is cold with temperatures of about 40 degrees Fahrenheit, so it's pretty close to freezing. Plants are not able to survive here because of the little sunlight it receives, and food is also scarce. So this is a hard place to survive. Animals that live in the Twilight Zone of the ocean are crabs, plankton, shrimp, squid, jellyfish, and some octopuses. So no vertebrates, none of the mammals or fish, no sharks, no whales, right? No dolphins, none of the mammals or fish. It's all invertebrates. Okay, octopus, jellyfish, crabs, lobsters. Many of these animals have large eyes to help them see in the darkness. That's one way they're adapted to the Twilight Zone. These animals are also small, dark, and thin to help them camouflage or blend into their dark surroundings. Okay, so we're getting scarier as we go down towards the bottom of the ocean. These are animals who are you're not going to find them in big crowds altogether, usually. Okay, they're few and far between in the Twilight Zone. And then the deepest zone of the ocean is the midnight zone. It does not receive any sunlight. It reaches down between 1,000 and 4,000 meters below the surface of the ocean and is very cold and dark. So it's even harder to survive down here, as you can imagine, than it is in the Twilight Zone. Humans, like you and me, still do not know much about this zone, and it is largely unexplored. So this is the bottom of the ocean, and for the most part, we have no idea what's down there. We know a little bit, mostly from satellite images and from some submarine exploration, but for the most part, this is a place where we don't know what's going on down there. There could be whole entire alien communities having a big old party at the bottom of the ocean, and we wouldn't know about it because we haven't explored down in this area, at least not very much. So animals have unique adaptations to help them survive in such harsh and extreme conditions that has virtually no light and limited food. So the sunlight can't reach to this level of the ocean, right? It's way too deep down there. So there's basically no light. It's pitch black, and there's hardly any food down there because plants need sunlight to grow, right? And food chains all have to start with a plant or start with the sun. So how does anything live down there? Well, when a place is difficult to survive, animals are amazing at adapting, right? So when we think about the desert or the tundra, we've talked about how animals adapt to those places. Same in the ocean. So some animals have extremely large eyes, but others have no eyes because it's so freaking dark. They don't even need their eyes. And they rely on their other senses. So food is also scarce in this zone, and many of these animals have large mouths to catch the remains of other animals that have fallen to the ocean floor. So there's a lot of scavengers down here, things that are eating the dead corpses that are sinking to the bottom of the ocean from the other zones, right? So as dead animals are floating past and sinking past, animals in the midnight zone are taking advantage of the free meal. Other animals in the midnight zone are bioluminescent, or produce their own light. So animals down here have learned how to glow up. They've learned how to glow from the inside because they live in such a dark place. Right? So some jellyfish glow. You may have seen anglerfish or other fish that seem to be lit up from the inside. That's an adaptation to help them survive in this dark place. One of the most well-known deep-sea creatures with bioluminescence is the anglerfish. It has a spine that sticks out above its mouth, and the tip of it lights up to attract prey to come close enough to their mouths to be eaten up. So, again, have you seen Finding Nemo? Do you remember this scene where, what's his name? Marlin notices that light when they're deep down in the bottom layer, and he notices the light and swims up to it, and then all of a sudden the whole entire spine lights up and you can see those sharp and creepy teeth of the anglerfish. It's a scary moment in the movie. So anglerfish use this light to lure other animals in the dark. And other animals that reside or live in the midnight zone are things like sea cucumbers, viperfish, jellyfish, monkfish, crabs, and squid. Okay, so mostly invertebrates and a few fish. Okay, so pause the video and let's answer the last one on your Google form for today, number 4. How are animals adapted to the midnight zone? What kind of adaptations do they have to survive that super dark and cold place? Okay, awesome. And you could have told me either that they have bioluminescence, so they light up from the inside, or that they're scavengers, that they're able to eat dead corpses that are sinking to the bottom of the ocean, for example. Alrighty, here are some fun facts and then we'll wrap it up. Fun facts about the ocean. Number 1, most of the volcanic activity in the world occurs under ocean waters. Most volcanoes are underwater. Did you know that humans have only explored about 10% of the ocean? That's an estimate, but that's not very much. There's a lot, the majority of the ocean that is still unexplored. Ocean water is constantly moving. The largest ocean in the world is the Pacific Ocean, which covers about 30% of the world. And then lastly, coral reefs are found in oceans are some of the most beautiful and diverse ecosystems in the world. So large reef systems can be up to 10,000 years old. That's wild. And then hopefully today you'll get to watch a short video on some coral reefs and see just how beautiful and diverse they are. Alright, so if you are doing this lesson by yourself, then go ahead and write this down, write the answer to this question down. What's one new thing you learned? And if you are sitting with someone maybe in your kitchen or in your home, go ahead and tell them, what did you learn today? And I will talk to you later. Bye.